right in front, you can see seaplanes coming down for a landing. The green peninsula you see directly behind is part of the massive Stanley Park, which is where I'm headed today. Stanley Park is probably Vancouver's most popular attraction, and it is huge. A sprawling 1,001 acres. Stanley Park is named after Frederick Stanley, 16th Earl of Derby, not to be confused with the Kentucky of Derby. But Lord Stanley was in fact the Governor General of Canada when Stanley Park became a park on September 27, 1888. You may recognize his name from something else famous. He is the same Lord Stanley that the Stanley Cup is named after, the most famous trophy in sports that goes to the National Hockey League champions each year. Yeah, that guy. And this is that park. And here's a map of the park. You can see it looks like a seahorse's head, a bit of a peninsula on the top of Vancouver. Much like these fine folks, I have rented a bike today to explore it. So let's explore. And away we go. I think my only problem is I keep wanting to slow down or even stop to record or just stop and look at stuff. But sometimes if you're just trying to rush through something and not trying to take it in and enjoy it, then what's the point?
Right.
So this bike had terrible brakes. It sounded like a freaking clown nose being honked every time I pushed lightly on them. At first, it annoyed the crap out of me, but then I realized I could make people scatter just by hitting the brakes. So it became pretty fun. We have now reached Brockton Point, and I'm now passing under one of the 3 welcome gateways. We've made it to the Stanley Park Totem Poles, known as the First Nation Totem Poles. These totem poles at Brockton Point are the most visited attraction in Vancouver, British Columbia, and possibly all of Canada. These totem poles were brought to Stanley Park in the 1920s, and some of them date as far back as the 1880s. Because it's the off-season, and because it's been pouring down rain, and it's pretty cold, so all of those factors have probably helped to keep the crowds away, which I can't say I mind.
That's the hangover.
And that's the Stanley Park Totem Poles. Let me just get my pedals adjusted, and here we go again. And here's the statue of Leonardo DiCaprio playing Jack in Titanic. Do you trust me? Oh no, there's some girls walking in front of me. How will I ever get them to move? Oh, those trusty, not trusty, crappy brakes. Bye-bye. Pardon me? And now we're coming up to the Brockton Point Lighthouse. The light was established here in 1890, and the square tower came later in 1914. The light has been inactive since 2008, but it does occasionally get used for special occasions. That's why I figured surely it would be on when I arrived, but to be fair to them, I didn't announce my visit. And now let's continue on this way, on our way to the Lionsgate Bridge. I guess this sign must say stop new bikes. I don't know how old this one is, but judging from the brakes, I'm going to guess it's not new. So let's keep going on. Yippity-doo. The statue that you see out on the rock is a bit hard to see, but it's titled Girl in a Wetsuit, and it's supposed to be a scuba diver on a rock. So there you go. And continuing on towards the Lionsgate Bridge. So, I was riding by this part, and I didn't originally notice it, but if you look up in the tree, all these people are staring up at an eagle eating another bird he's captured. He's tearing that bird apart right now. I wish I had realized it quicker. I had to turn around and come back and film it a few minutes later, and by the time I did, he had already finished, and the carcass of the other bird was on the ground, and not much of it left.
Took that thing down.
Yeah, he just dropped it a minute ago.
Oh, okay.
There's not much left of it. It's just, oh, tons of people have gone by.
Yeah.
Noticed it.
You can see the other bird's body and feathers scattered on the ground, just below the eagle there. And there he goes, flying away. What a majestic bird. And what a beautiful view with the Lions Gate Bridge behind. Well, that was a pretty cool treat. Now continuing on closer and closer to the Lions Gate Bridge. Let's go ahead and stop here for a pretty cool view of the Lions Gate Bridge. As a container ship passes underneath, I'll tell you a little bit about it. The Lions Gate Bridge opened in 1938, and its official name is the First Narrows Bridge, as it crosses the First Narrows and the Burrard Inlet. It got the name that it's more famously known by because of a couple mountain peaks behind it known as the Lions. In 1939, a couple of concrete lions were placed on each end of the bridge. Other notable events include, in 2025, me riding a bike just above it, an eagle tearing a bird apart nearby, and just down the road, some girls hustling out of the way because of some squeaky and obnoxious bike brakes. Truly, this bridge has had an eventful history. Well, I would say that's a pretty snazzy view right there.
Looking as a driver, sure enough, it checks. He's not gonna put this
One more little sneak peek view of the Lionsgate Bridge over here, and then we're on our way again. Well, it's not the redwoods, but that's a pretty large tree right there. Well, I thought I was getting rich. I thought I captured a video of Sasquatch, but it's just a couple of people walking a bicycle built for two across the street. That big bugger remains the hide-and-go-seek champion. Then I thought there was a bunch of chipmunks arguing with each other. I tried to make peace, but then I realized it was my bicycle. Well, we're almost back to downtown again. You can see it off in the distance. And just as we're finishing up, the sun comes out. Just my luck. There are some rose gardens over here, but being the fact that it's winter, you're not going to see a lot. Well, that concludes my little bike tour of Stanley Park. I do hope you enjoyed yourself, and you'll join us again real soon. As the Canadians would say, goodbye.